from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, a producer with big plans and a whole lot of data to back it up.
If you ask my team, they'd say I'm a dreamer.
We'll introduce you to another top producer finalist.
This is a colossal victory for our farmers, ranchers, energy workers, factory workers, and American workers in all 50 states.
And team coverage as a new trade agreement goes into effect with Mexico and Canada.
USMCA is officially signed, but when will it be implemented? We'll have that from the Top Producer Summit in Chicago, Illinois.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment at the Top Producer Summit in Chicago. We'll hear from him coming up. The North American Free Trade Agreement is no more in the U.S. President Trump signing the new U.S Mexico-Canada Agreement into law on Wednesday. That's after the deal was approved by the U.S. Senate earlier this month. The deal is seen as a victory for U.S. farmers.
Canada will finally provide greater access for American dairy. Canada's opening up. It will grow annual exports to our neighbors by an estimated $315 million. Poultry exports to Canada are expected to rise by at least 50%, and egg export could increase by 500%. Canada will finally give fair treatment to American-grown wheat. The USMCA is also a massive win for American manufacturers and auto workers.
Mexico voted to approve the deal last year. Canada still needs to approve it. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan joins us from the Top Producer Summit in Chicago with reaction to the USMCA signing. Tyne, now the deal has to be put into action.
Yeah, thanks, Betsy. There weren't a lot of fireworks after the signing of USMCA in Washington, D.C. this week. But now the question is implementation. And Farm Journal's Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer says that may not happen until summer.
Because they have to do exchange of letters. Of course, Canada has to ratify it. That will probably come in early February, but it just takes time to exchange the papers and start the implementation process. But it'll be steady as you go relative to North American trading.
More certainty for North American trade, but not yet for China. And Wiesmeyer thinks the final tranche of MFP 2.0 payments will be coming soon, payments that total $3.6 billion.
It looks like early February to me, but it will be made, by, I would say, by the middle of February. And that's an important month for a number of Midwest, producers relative to financing, rental payments, land payments, et cetera.
Now, Betsy, the big question with MFP is, will there be MFP 3.0 in 2020? And everyone I've talked to here at Top Producer Summit in Chicago, Illinois this week says the likelihood of that is growing by the week. Reporting from the Top Producer Summit, I'm Tyne Morgan for AgDay.
Thanks, Tyne. And trade talks continue on another front right now with USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue in Europe this week. He's meeting with EU farm leaders on working toward a potential trade agreement. Both President Trump and the EU Commission President have both said they hoped a deal could come together quickly. Perdue saying in a conference call with reporters, U.S. ag needs to be included in any trade deal.
We have a $10 to $12 billion trade deficit with the EU, and we're dealing with an entity that has almost twice as many consumers as the U.S. and 2/3 of the arable land. We don't think that makes any sense. We think it should be even at best, maybe even a trade surplus based on those numbers.
In a session with EU Trade Commissioner Phil Hogan, Political reports that Secretary Perdue said there wouldn't be a deal unless Europe makes some concessions regarding sanitary and phytosanitary measures, including allowing U.S. acid-rinsed chicken into Europe. Secretary Perdue also saying he's not sure what effect a new deadly virus will mean for China buying U.S. farm goods as part of the Phase 1 trade deal. The World Health Organization's emergencies chief says China is taking, quote, extraordinary measures in the face of an extraordinary challenge, end quote, in the face of the coronavirus outbreak. Dr. Michael Ryan made the comments after returning from a trip to Beijing to discuss the virus with Chinese President Xi Jinping and other senior government leaders. He says the epidemic remains centered in the city of Hunan. He says many of those affected experience only a mild illness and estimated the death rate is about at 2%. That's compared to SARS, which had a 10% death rate. Concern about the virus and its impact globally are continuing to impact the stock and commodity markets. ProFarmer reporting fears of the outbreak are continuing to limit buying interest when it comes to U.S. soybeans. A powerful jet stream is continuing to control a lot of our weather right now. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has an update.
Yeah, Betsy, the jet's obviously a big factor in our weather patterns. Now, it's not quite so powerful yet, but as we put this into motion, notice how we're going to see those isobars really coming together. So look for some cooler temperatures starting to come into the Great Lakes as we get into the weekend, but warmer temperatures with a ridge in the west. That's going to be brief because watch as another trough starts to develop in the western United States as we get into the early part of next week, and that's going to be moving across the country. So we'll see those cool temperatures still hanging out in the north central and northeastern parts of the country. Now for your daily dose of awe. This picture gives us all the feels. Lindsay Kimbrell of North Texas sharing this picture. She says this is her little girl giving her daddy hugs before he goes out to spray fertilizer on the wheat before it rains. What a beautiful shot, and can't you just see the love there? Gosh, I love these pictures. Stay tuned. Just in a few minutes, I'll have your national forecast. Betsy?
USDA is closing its comment period this week for farmers, businesses, and organizations to react to the department's rules for growing hemp. USDA closed the comment period yesterday on its interim rules for hemp production. It's a rule which was released back in October. These rules will be in effect for those who want to grow hemp over the next 2 years. The verbiage has rules growers have to follow when it comes to growing, transporting, and testing hemp. One provision says hemp samples have to be tested at a DEA registered lab with every hemp grower within a 15-day timeline before harvest.
Now, it's a concern because there are only so many DEA registered labs in the United States. Now, I think DEA would say there's plenty of labs for all of this sampling and testing to occur in, all of the testing to be done by, but it's really hard to become a DEA registered labs.
We will keep you posted if anything changes because of the comment period. Coming up, we head back out to the Top Producer Summit in Chicago with a closer look at the Phase 1 deal and why American grain may not be the only winner. And a farmer who runs the combine but is also comfortable crunching a lot of numbers. Meet another one of our top producer finalists coming up.
Got equipment to sell privately but tired of scams and hassles? Visit MachineryPete.com and click Sell Mine. MachineryPete.com, the simple and secure way to buy and sell equipment online.
Traders not taking much of an interest, it appears, in USMCA being signed today by the president, with grains continuing to remain in the red, and the Federal Reserve announcing it is leaving a key interest rate unchanged. Here's an update from the CME.
The Ag Secretary, Sonny Perdue, said that he's unsure that the virus is going to hinder Chinese purchases of grain in the U.S. That kind of talk really is going to put a halt to any kind of rally right now. Also, the U.S. dollar index is really at a 2-month high right now. So those kind of things really will add a lid on any kind of movement to the upside, certainly for the wheat. Today in the livestock market, cattle did slip somewhat. The downtrend is intact, and futures have been a little bit oversold. So maybe that creates a little bit of a sideways, momentum. But right now, there's real concerns that this weak market will bring in more selling. And I know that they're expecting the inventory report should be kind of positive, but the futures with the momentum to the downside could make the market really press lower. And let's not forget that the live cattle market is really ripe for a big correction.
Well, we are here at Top Producer Summit in Chicago, Illinois. I'm talking with Erin Fitzpatrick. She's a grain and oilseed analyst at Rabo AgriFinance. Erin, let's talk about this Phase 1 deal because we continue to wait to see something happen on grains, at least on that front, right?
Yeah, I think on the grain side, it was a bit disappointing to the markets. If you look more at the livestock side of the equation, I think it's a lot more opportunistic. And we may not get the volumes of soybeans or corn immediately going to China and maybe not even wheat. But if we look at what it means from a big volume of meat going to China. We're going to have to feed those animals here domestically.
Yeah, so you see real potential then on the domestic side, in the meat production side, and using our grain here and then shipping the protein across.
Yes, I think with the phase one being more optimistic for livestock exports, grain farmers are going to be looking at more feeding the animals and watching their grains, if we want to call it, walking off the farm more in the upcoming year.
Yeah. As we start to kind of get our arms around this, what are your expectations, or what are you going to be watching over the next 3 or 4 months to see what this phase one agreement means?
Sure. I think, there's probably two things. One is there's still tariffs on a lot of U.S. exports into China. So we need to watch and see if China starts to remove some of those tariffs. And then secondly, actually how much they start buying of the commodities that they've listed in this phase one trade deal.
And does it matter, how much they actually ship or buy? I mean, we still think we can hit those numbers?
I think it's going to be a challenge, but if they do start looking at buying more of the value-added products, the higher-priced products, which is kind of in some of the wording of what they announced when they came out with the phase one trade deal, that can get us to that $40 billion a lot quicker than if they're buying some more of the lower-priced commodities.
All right, a few headwinds still ahead, but appreciate the insights. Thank you very much. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
Cindy Clausen joining us for weather this morning. Cindy, what's going on in the forecast?
Well, we do have some wet areas, but a lot of the country on the drier side, at least over the next 24 hours. But there are some places that we need to watch. Let's take a look. The southeast will be a little drier today as this system continues to pull off into the Atlantic. High pressure keeping things mostly dry in the northeastern United States. A couple of things in the nation's midsection, though. We do have a low pressure system into the northern plains, upper Midwest. You're going to see a little snow there with those cool temperatures, and yet another cold front moving into the Pacific Northwest, keeping that wet weather pattern going there. Heading into the overnight hours, we start to see some more moisture here in Texas along the west Gulf Coast. We're going to see that continuing as we head in through our Friday as well. And a system now starting to move in towards the Great Lakes. The moisture, though, most of the moisture is stuck with the system over in the Gulf Coast states. All right, let's take a look at the precipitation. The past 24 hours has been that low that's been in the southeast and, of course, the Pacific Northwest, where they've just bombarded with storm after storm. Heading through the day today, we don't see a lot of change in the southeast because that storm moves offshore, but we're going to be seeing more moisture, rain and upper elevation snow in the northwest, and you see it gets a little wet in the southern part of Texas as well. Most of that snowfall in the west, those higher elevations, we're going to add a little bit more to that, and we spread that into the northern plains and parts of the upper Midwest and getting into the western parts of the Great Lakes as well. As far as temperatures go, we're still pretty chilly in the far northeast, but things will warm up. And we have some cooler with cloudy weather, 40s even down into parts of Texas, Oklahoma. Now watch as we get into the overnight hours, and we are going to be seeing those temperatures not super chilly. We're looking at some teens and 20s across the north central United States, but that's not bad. That's actually a little mild this time of the year. About 10 in Bangor, a lot of 30s and 40s across the south central, so still a little cool for the southern part of the United States. But as we get into tomorrow, we see those temperatures warming up, more 30s on those northern tier states, and so that's a little bit warmer once again, and we see some more 50s and 60s in the south, but we do expect more clouds, and so we're going to keep those 40s in parts of Oklahoma and even the northern parts of Texas. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Terry, Montana, breezy with rain and snow today and a high of 41 degrees. Peabody, Kansas, mostly cloudy with a high of 38 degrees. And Pittsfield, New Hampshire, mostly sunny with a high of 31.
Have you tried a plant-based meat product recently? What new numbers show about who's eating alternative meats? And what one analyst expects to see in this week's all-important cattle report next. Many people are keeping an eye on the cattle markets this week with the release of one of the largest cattle reports happening tomorrow. USDA releasing its cattle inventory report on Friday, which is usually a market mover. The report shows the total number of cows in the United States. Analysts and economists expect the report to show the lowest cattle inventory in years, possibly since 2016.
The herd expansion that we've gone through the last 5-6 years in the cattle market has definitely slowed down. So the expectation is about a 1 to 2% decline of total inventory.
French says herd expansions historically last 5 to 6 years. Right now, U.S. producers are in the 5th to 6th year of expansion. Here is something interesting, new research into plant-based meat and how often Americans are really eating it. Research from People Say, a marketing firm, reports that 51% of Americans have tried plant-based meat at least once, and only 12% say they eat those alternative meat options quite often. And Drover's editor Greg Henderson says there were other interesting answers from those surveyed.
Fewer than 1 in 3 consumers consider fake meats healthy and environmentally friendly. Nearly half of those surveyed believe alternative proteins are highly processed and can't compare to real meat. However, the study found a distinct difference in opinion by age group. 16% of millennials said they eat fake meats regularly, while only 8% of baby boomers say they do so.
Greg says, according to the survey, a quarter of millennials who eat alternative meats say they do so for environmental reasons, the highest among age groups. Coming up, a producer with big ideas and the numbers to back them up. Meet another one of this year's top producer finalists next. We've been showing you this week the farmer finalists up for the Top Producer of the Year award. It's an award given out by our sister publication, Top Producer Magazine. Today you'll meet the third and last finalist up for the coveted award. Clinton Griffiths takes us to Canada to meet a farmer turned CPA who moved back to the farm with a unique mindset.
Put Christian Hebert, managing partner of Hebert Grain Ventures, in a room and see what happens.
If we have problems around here, it would be lock me in a boardroom with whiteboards.
He's a visionary.
I think if you ask my team, they'd say I'm a dreamer.
A numbers and tech guy.
Field by field, I know the exact revenue number.
Located in Moosomin, Saskatchewan, with big ideas that he says would be nothing without his crew.
That when it comes to fully executing those tasks and getting everything done that needs to get done is not my strength. That's what I need to hire really, really good people for.
We are constantly trying to keep pace with all of his new ideas and figure out how we're going to implement them and make them work for the rest of us in the real world.
His different approach to farming may be due to his background, a farm kid turned CPA who came back to the farm.
The numbers side and the people side of agriculture drew me to it way more than running a combine.
Along with his parents and wife, Teresa, Hebert wanted a good business structure from the start to make the farm last for generations. A farm which now grows malt barley, canola, wheat, yellow peas, rye, and hemp.
He's basically created a perfect storm of people and technology to take the farm from 10,000 acres to 22,000 acres.
Hebert wants to help the industry succeed as a whole. He created a consulting and investment arm, a farmland real estate company, investment holding company, finance and risk management consulting business, human resources technology firm, and a margin insurance company.
But in order for the whole industry to succeed, which is really what we all want, you have to be willing to help others.
Yet, he may be most known for his impact on the tech world.
At some point in time, we should almost be able to manage, not operate, but manage the farm from 3 screens that pop up on our desk.
He's already on that track, controlling profits by looking at weather data from his own fields.
But this field, based on what the water's doing, I have the ability to grow 19 more bushels than I'm currently ready for.
As a director of strategic projects of Global Ag Risk Solutions, the insurance company helps farmers, he says, expand safely 3 times the pace of normal in a non-traditional way.
So our operating capital is 80% supplied through an insurance contract and a personal guarantee. There's no land equity, there's no machinery equity tied into our op, which means that as we want to expand, if I take on 1,000 acres, I only need to come up with 20% of the working capital to do it.
Hebert believes in hiring good people to help drive growth. He's changed his scheduling structure to avoid burnout and has workers take personality tests. He's also created a phantom partnership unit for his team, giving employees a chance to become owners, sharing in the profits of the business.
The one thing a whole bunch of people in this world never get an opportunity for is some sort of a profit share, an ownership opportunity.
If you put Hebert in front of a whiteboard,
you still like it to be able to see it sometimes, right?
He may have ideas,
but it's the team he's building and their pursuit of future goals that's most exciting. Congratulations to Christian Heber, finalist for Top Producer of the Year.
We'll announce the winner of the Top Producer Award tomorrow morning on AgDay. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.